Hey y'all, it's Megan. If you're returning to my channel, welcome back. And if you're new, welcome aboard. I'm back. It's been a minute. I actually lost one of my skipper friends suddenly, and it's just been kind of a weird time. The Disney didn't have the magic for me for a few weeks there. So I'm back. I'm ready to talk about some more fun Disney stuff. No sadness. And we are gonna go back to one of my favorite happy time things, which is weird Disney. So today we're gonna talk about adventure through, not outer, but inner space. So when Walt was wanting to do New Tomorrowland at Disneyland in the late 60s, the idea was they were just gonna wipe everything out because Tomorrowland had kind of just been like a advertisement, for lack of a better term. If you have seen my Bathroom of the Future, Bathroom of Tomorrow video, that's kind of the idea. Everything was sponsored by something. He wanted to move away from that and have some more attractions that were just attractions for attraction's sake. But the one we're talking about today, somehow, was also kind of an advertisement. This one was for Monsanto. So Walt's idea was kind of to have, as part of this New Tomorrowland, he wanted to have a science land section of Tomorrowland, or an adventures in science section of Tomorrowland. So the idea of Tomorrowland has always been outer space, right? Future, tomorrow, space travel, that was a big thing at the time. But they were like, let's do a little play on this, and for the science section of this Tomorrowland, let's go inside. Let's have the inner space. Let's go molecular. The entire premise of this ride was the guest gets shrunken down to atomic size, and they are going inside a molecule, and they get to see the inner workings of an atom and how, you know, everything is made up of these atoms inside of us. You walk into the queue and there's this gigantic, the mighty microscope is what they called it, Monsanto's mighty microscope, and you can see the ride vehicles, which was actually the first Omni-Mover system. You can see these little blue capsules that kind of go into the end of the microscope, and then if you look at the tube, you can see where it looks like everyone's getting shrunken down, and then they just disappear completely into the ether. And so it's a really cool visual effect for those in the queue, and you're like, oh man, we're going on this adventure. So let me just describe for you the ride as it existed. First of all, it's narrated by Paul Frees, which you would probably recognize as the voice of the ghost host from the Haunted Mansion. And he is also a disembodied voice in this attraction, and this is one of the weirder things about this attraction to me, because it lasted a long time. It opened in 67 and it didn't close until 85. It lasted 18 years, so something was right, but there's individual things about this that are very strange to me, which is why I've included it in Weird Disney. You get shrunken down, you go into a snowflake, and you have a narrator. And he is not a scientist who's explaining the situation. He's not looking through the microscope at you explaining the situation. He is the disembodied voice of the first person to have gone through this process. And you are hearing his inner thoughts as he thought them as he went through the process. If that is not the most convoluted, strange way to have done that narration, I would like to know what is the most convoluted, strange way to have done that narration, actually, because when I heard that and I was reading what this narrator was supposed to be, I was like, but why? Why couldn't it have been like the guy who's looking through the microscope and he's like, okay, so now you're going to be seeing, no. He's the first guy to make this atomic journey, and he's now telling you through his thoughts that are stuck in the ether of this experience how he experienced. Weird. As you shrink, you start seeing snowflakes. You know, they're teeny tiny little snowflakes, but they start getting bigger, and they start getting bigger until eventually you see this gigantic crystal ice prism that is the snowflake, and you are going inside of its molecular makeup. So it's kind of a cool sciencey thing if you're into chemistry and biology and everything. You're like, oh wow, this is kind of fun. And I bet a lot of young scientists were influenced by this attraction, but it just gets a little weirder. So you see the ice crystals, you see the structure, and then you go deeper, you get smaller, and then you start seeing the actual like individual atoms that are part of this molecule. And these atoms are made up of wire. They're supposed to be like the electrons buzzing around the nucleus. So you know, you got the nucleus with the protons and the neutrons, and then the electrons are, you know, doing their thing around it to make that like buzzy you know, Jimmy Neutron little atom looking situation. They just took wire and they like wrapped it up. It looks like a little tumbleweed, and they just tumbleweeds hanging everywhere. So you see all the electrons buzzing around, and then you move into the next space and the ice, the crystals have started to melt. So the snowflake is melting, and now you don't have solid molecules of ice, you have liquid molecules of water. So you see these changes in the different states of matter, and then that's kind of it. You're kind of done. So your disembodied voice tells you, all right, we're going to start coming back to regular size again. Like you're visible to the eye again, and then you look up and there's just this giant eyeball staring at you through the eyepiece of the microscope. And nope, that was creepy. Did not enjoy that at all. The attraction was sponsored by Monsanto, who was a chemical production company, and they had a lot of products that they were involved in. They had fabrics, plastics, all kinds of stuff that they were involved in making. And you get to the end, and this is kind of along the lines of the first like Disney gift shop where you exit into the gift shop thing, except for it's just like you exit into a giant promotion. And so maybe you thought this ride was scientific and it was just factual and it was just, you know, edutainment, I think is what the phrase is for, it's like educational entertainment stuff. But no, we get to the ad at the very end. You come out and it's like, now that you've seen the natural molecules of the world, let's show you some of the amazing man-made molecules that you can see in our world today. And then it's just like posters and products and everything else that Monsanto has made. So it's like, here's some of the stretchy fabrics that we've made, and look at all these plastics. And people loved this attraction for a very important reason. It was free. At this time at Disneyland, you had to have tickets, you know, the A through E tickets, and this didn't require a ticket at all. This wasn't even a ticket. This was no ticket. So people could just come in as many times as they wanted, didn't have to pay. As long as you got into Disneyland, that was it. You just had to get in line and you could come and do it. So it was very, very popular for kind of a long time. And because it was so popular, it was popular among all age groups. Little kids did kind of tend to get a little nervous and a little scared at the beginning, because it was a pretty convincing visual effect of being shrunken. So you'd periodically hear kids like screaming and crying because they didn't want to be shrunken. And they were like, no, I don't want to be small. And so that was kind of scary for the little ones. But the older people really loved it, and teenagers loved it for a different reason. And this is mainly the weird part of it. We're gonna keep this as family friendly as we can, but use your imaginations and read between the lines, my friends. So teenagers have always been around. They've always been a treat and a half. And we can't have nice things has always been a thing. So they had to actually make some changes to the attraction because of teenagers. They had to start from this point on making the envelope of safety bigger, because teenagers wanted to steal the little fuzzy atom wire cage tumbleweed things. They would try to like reach out and grab them and take them home as a souvenir just because they could. So now that's why ride vehicles are stationed so far from any objects. You can't touch any items that are within the ride path. Teenagers also tried to spit in the eye when it would like pop up and it was like, oh, you're visible again, and then they would try to spit at the eye, which is just nasty. Like, don't do that. The Atom Mobile was the first omnimover, and this was the first time that people had seen a ride vehicle system like this, where you were like by yourself in this little thing where it's like you're shielded, no one else can see you most of the time, and it's a dark ride, and it's like 6 minutes long. And teenagers, as they will, took advantage of this. So this is now why there's a lot of CCTV cameras installed in Disney attractions. And you hear about these things happening still, like on Pirates especially. I had friends who worked at Pirates. They can see everything, I'm just saying. People thought that they were invisible in their little cocoons of safety, and they weren't. So teenagers would think that this was a fun place to have some little private time. They would take their girlfriends, and it was very, very popular. In 1972, they made it a ticketed attraction. It was a C ticket. It wasn't, you know, an E-ticket attraction still, but it was a C ticket. It did require a ticket to try to discourage people from just like going on and on and on and on a whole bunch of times and taking up space to do nefarious things. And they also shortened the attraction a little bit. They were like, okay, we're gonna give them less time to mess around and do sketchy stuff. And it really just kind of acted more as like a challenge, like, hey, how fast can we do things? So it didn't really work, and they did end up eventually closing the attraction in 1985 to make room for Star Tours. And a couple of little fun facts about that: the building itself, they kept the basic layout of the space the same. So I'll put up a picture here where you can see the layout of Adventure Through Inner Space and Star Tours, and they kind of followed the same path. And if you remember the speeder that is in the queue at the very beginning, where 3PO is off to the side and R2 is like pops up out of the speeder, that is where the microscope was initially. I think it's kind of cool that you can still kind of tell the basic layout of that space. As weird Disney things go, I don't feel like this is as far up on the list as the Bathroom of Tomorrow or the Wizard of Braz, which we've talked about in previous videos, and I'll link those down below if you haven't seen those and want to check them out. But it was a really fun attraction. It was very scientific. People really enjoyed it, and I feel like it really laid the foundation for future attractions like Body Wars at Epcot that people really loved. And you know, also it's just, as I was reading about it, and just it was giving Magic School Bus to me. Anybody else remember that episode where Miss Frizzle shrunk everyone down and they were like, we're inside the body, and I probably would have liked this attraction too. Who knows? But that is it for today. Thanks guys for bearing with me. I know I've been gone for a little while. I will hopefully get myself back together here and be back on a little bit more of a schedule. If there's anything in particular that you want to hear more about, if there's certain lists, you know, top whatever from Disney that you'd like to know my opinion on, or if there's a certain attraction that you want to hear more about, weird or otherwise, let me know those down below, just so I can kind of get a feel for what y'all are interested in right now, because I'm a little out of practice, as you can tell. But that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, y'all.